So now, let me now introduce Sneha to give her vision, because that the concept needs to be understood. Then Lundup will give the description of what's happening in Bhutan. And then after that, Virgil and Hoksong will talk about the Sabah experience. Okay, Sneha, it's all yours.
Okay, so good afternoon, children of Mother Earth, if I may address you like that. Um, Before I begin, I would like to thank Andrew and Babasan Open University for hosting us. I just came back from Bhutan and I was worried that I wouldn't make it because once you are there, you don't want to leave. But only carbon negative country in the world, but mostly because of the foggy weather. But I'm grateful to be here today. And before I present what we are doing at the villages and the integrated concept of smart Omni villages, I would like to just jump back a bit at the meta level and bring you to the train of thought that led us there. So, yeah. So I would like to begin by restating, in fact, a simple truth that our existence is all interconnected and interdependent. We live in a web of systems within systems. Our Earth is within a complex solar system, which is within cosmos, and within that there's Malaysia, Bhutan, and within that there's states, and within that there's a village. So this is our overview, and the simple truth here is that. It's in a very intricate balance, like a flower of life. And the problem today, our situation is that we have massively disrupted this balance. And to the extent that UN chief in August 2023 remarked that forget era of global warming, we have already arrived in the era of global boiling. Yet, majority of us humans, we continue with our lives as if nothing has happened. We are still going on, as Doug mentioned yesterday, purchasing more cars, manufacturing more goods and services, even when we don't need it. So the common sense when I think about it, and when I especially talk to young children in schools in India, is that why don't we just rest to restore? If there's nothing we can do to solve climate change, why don't we put rest to all the non-essential economic activity? But we can't do that really, right? Because there's a lot of social impact that's going to be hamper it. There's a lot of livelihoods that would be lost if we put all the non-essential economic activity to rest. But during COVID pandemic, we saw that such kind of rest can be managed. And when we do put to rest non-essential economic activity, Earth starts to heal itself really fast. And it's also very easy at that time to induce human behavioral change because we adopted to remote working very quickly. We adopted to masks, sanitizing very quickly, right? But why are we taking this decision is because taking bold decisions like this needs either a climate dictator who can just impose decisions, or it needs multilateral cooperation. And right now, we need to realize basically is that we live in one planet, we are divided between nations. And why the multilateral cooperation is not coming is because, just as the previous speaker mentioned, that we do not have enough data. So we are saying that we need to cut down fossil fuels, but how do you convince a Arab country, which is totally dependent on fossil fuels for their economy, to cut down fossil fuels, right? So we need to ensure each country that their needs would be met, whatever their population needs are, and they'll be given a life of well-being. But we don't have data to ensure each of these countries yet, and that is why, as chartered account, and sorry, just to bring back the discussion at present at economic level, is that economists are divided between growth or green growth or degrowth strategies, and they forget that these strategies cannot be implemented globally. Like for a country like Bhutan, we cannot look at degrowth, right? Because they need growth at present. So these strategies have to be contextual and it has to be place-based. We cannot just generalize and say that the world needs degrowth or the world needs green growth. So And also, we have been relying on green transition, like even in this morning today, that we were talking about how we can solve things with solar panels. But recent calculations by Simon Mishok showed that we do not have enough minerals to do so. So, what can we do about it? And that is why, intuitively, when I and Andrew we were thinking about this problem, we realized that we need a One Earth balance sheet to solve this, because we need a holistic data dashboard that tells us that how much stock, natural stock and resources do we have, where is it, and in comparison to that, how what are the needs of the population at different places, so that those can be managed, balanced, and met. So that's about One Earth balance sheet, that why we need it. Um, I know it's challenging. It's very challenging to bring global cooperation, but I think the G20 summit recently in India gave me a very big hope, because the theme of the summit was One Earth, One Family, and I believe that if we go on continuing in that direction, it may bring us to multilateral cooperation at someday. But that's not all. One balance sheet is not all, and it cannot solve all the problems. The problem with climate debate so far is that we have been taking a pinhole perspective. We have been just thinking about it in terms of um, carbon emissions or net zero targets, but we are discounting other factors like biodiversity loss or social inequality. So basically, we forget that all our problems starts with self, and right now we are ourselves. Majority of humans are in sort of like illusion of separation at three levels. Illusion of separation first from a higher self, like we can see at right now with global wars that is happening, with the leaders, they are in separation with their own moral selves, as we were discussing yesterday. Second, at societal level, we think of ourselves as separate from society. We think that we can live in our own private bubbles, which obviously is now being getting bursted. And third is that we think of ourselves as separate from nature, because of which we invent solutions which are in contest with nature rather than in tune with it. So, economists think that it is an economic problem, but I think that it is actually a human aspiration problem. That as humans, what do we really aspire for? What are we aspiring through growth? What are we aspiring through degrowth? Because these are just means. These are not ends in itself, right? So far as civilizations, we have been aspiring for GDP, but clearly GDP is not enough because it's more income focused. And what has happened in this race to GDP is that we have created hell within and around ourselves. So we need to shift our focus from not just removing carbon from atmosphere, but as Andrew calls it, well-becoming. We need well-becoming at national, global, individual, and regional levels. And that means a shift from imbalanced lifestyle, which is just focused right now for majority on career economic growth, to a more balanced lifestyle, which is focused on all the seven spheres of life. But the challenge, the biggest challenge that we are facing to this well-becoming is trapped human intelligence, if I have to put it. Because let me share with you all a joke that I came across when I was living in this Himalayan village in Ladakh. Um, so my friend said that when I moved to a house, local house, which only had compost toilet, and I took time coming from a city to adjust to that compost toilet, they said that humans are the only species that lives on land but deposits their waste into water. And, and that struck me. And I thought that no wonder our soils are depleted today and our water is polluted, right? So that is how our intelligence is sort of trapped. And then I looked at ontology, which says that what we design starts designing us back. So what happened is that at cosmological level, or at our uh, faith level, or you can say our truth level, all the systems that we are living in today came from a perspective that humans are separate from nature, which was mentioned in some religious text which was misunderstood. And then that led to design of our governance system, our knowledge, trade and rules of trade and commerce, even our self-awareness and consciousness. Now, what has happened today is that our cosmological perspective has shifted at meta level. We no longer think of ourselves as separate from nature. We have realized that we are all in one interconnected and interdependent system. But our governance, our knowledge system, our rules of trade and commerce, our self-awareness all remains in this old paradigm, which has not been translated at grassroots level. So we need to realize first and most of all is that it is individuals who make up all the systems, governments, or markets. So that is why the change has to start at an individual level by liberating our own paradigms, by liberating our own mindset, which has been trapped in the previous incorrect paradigm. And how do we do that? And so right now at global level, when I go to internet or when I visit all these communities in Himalayas, what I see is that there is no shortage of individuals or there is no shortage of solutions or in fact communities who have completely transformed their perspective and they have completely transformed their life and villages. But the problem is that hardly 1% of the marketing budget of the world goes towards bringing these solutions to light. 99% of the marketing budget in the world is still spent on selling us all the consumeristic items and mainstream economic ideologies. So what we can do is we need to, that is why, increase our marketing budget and awareness about all these solutions. And what we can do is we can create a global Creative Commons, as John Crawford mentioned yesterday and Andrew mentioned just now, to bring all these solutions together at least on one platform that can raise more awareness. So that's our second idea, and the concept that we are working on is a global Creative Commons, that how do we collect knowledge from these different silo places and interweave them together in one platform so that it can be disseminated at a lower transaction cost. And this, with this liberated intelligence, which now brings me to the concept of smart Omni villages, we need to design for a new way of life, which I call a new development model, which does not considers us, where we do not consider ourselves separate from our moral self, society, or nature, but rather integrated. Self, society, and nature is integrated. And with, instead of values of greed, jealousy, and ignorance, values of wisdom, beauty, and harmony. So how do we do that? And so when I thought about this deeply, it led me to 8 domains, which you can see in the circle. We'll be sending out reading materials, so I would not go in detail in each of these 8 domains. But these lead to almost fulfillment of all the SDGs if we do it right. And there's no shortage of solutions or there's no shortage of experiments that have been done in each of these 8 domains. It's just that these have not been woven together in a holistic development model that can be replicated from one place to another. And that is what we are doing with the Omni villages. We are weaving together all these siloed solutions that are existing in different parts of the world at one village level first, so that it can be replicated to more and more villages. And at the center of it is not GDP. The lotus that you see is what I call Omni well-being, which is a holistic well-being model. And why we are starting with village level is because 45% of the global population, especially in developing countries, that is about 3.1 billion people, still live in villages. And developing world at present is relooking at its development model because we cannot follow the development model that was prescribed to us by the Western countries. Because if we do that, we'll be risking more climate change and more destruction. So, and also the soil and the soul of any country lies in the villages. So if you want to solve even the problem of soil regeneration, we need to work holistically at the village level, because the problem of soil is not just of the soil. It is related to water, it is related to education, it is related to economic livelihoods, it is related to infrastructure, ecology, energy, everything. So even to solve just the problem of soil, we have to address so many different multiple dimensions. So that is why Omni Village concept. And and from where did I get the inspiration of this concept was looking at the state of the villages in India at present that has followed unidimensional path of GDP-led development. So this is one village, Joshimath, which is right now sinking. So they are evacuating all the residents from there, and it's a very bad situation. And this is just in 2023. This is Kullu, which was again developed from a unidimensional perspective and again had massive destruction during floods last year. So how do we bring it to execution and how do we execute it? Because states and markets are polarized. We cannot rely on that. So we found inspiration in Silicon Valley network model, which is a social venture model, which brings together or becomes a platform that can lead to intersectoral collaboration. Again, I'll be sharing the reading material with you also, and I would not be going into deep that what that model is about. But what it does is that it takes the ecosystem of initiatives approach. So all the 8 domains that we saw. So we are curating initiatives in all of those 8 domains, which becomes an ecosystem in itself. And Stuart Kaufman, he just wrote a paper on theory of adjacent possible. So what that theory says is that when you have a ecosystem of tools to tinker with or ecosystem of initiatives to tinker with, initially the rate of growth is slow, but there is a point where it all starts to take off and there is a hockey stick effect. It all starts to come together. And that is what we are hoping for with these ecosystem of initiatives in each of these 8 domains, that in future we may be able to get this hockey stick effect. And we are doing this by, first of all, creating a holistic village level data dashboard, again, which we call like village level balance sheets. Because at present, even in Malaysia, India, or Bhutan, we have national level data dashboards, we have global level data dashboards, but we do not have village level data dashboards, because of which there is a lot of problem in taking evidence-based scientific decisions. So we are starting with creating a village level data dashboard. And this is just an architecture of how a food balance sheet data dashboard is going to look like, which John Crawford mentioned yesterday as well. And this includes Creative Commons for the consumer as well. And so we already started this project pilot in Malaysia in 4 villages in Sabah, which Virgil and Hoksong will talk about later today. And we the progress to share the progress, we installed bioreactors, which is again a low tech nature based solution to regenerate soil. So just 1 pound of it is has the potential to regenerate the soil of more than 1 acre of land. And we started with some awareness programs. We started with creating the data dashboard, and we did the baseline assessment as well. And we did the scoping also of the ecotourism projects that are possible. And in all of those 8 domains, what are the interventions that are needed? And this year, we are in the process of gathering the team, more funding, and resources to put it into action. Moving forward, there's this very interesting concept and platform that has become now live in India, which is called Social Stock Exchange, which is very similar to any other stock exchange like Bombay Stock Exchange or New York Stock Exchange. But it allows listing of zero coupon, zero principal bonds on the stock market. So that means that social enterprises and projects like this can raise funds without worrying about paying interest or returning that money. It's just that the project would need to be audited. There would be credibility to the project. So moving on, for projects like this, we plan to raise funds through Social Stock Exchange. And I think Andrew has also in Malaysia, hopefully there would be a social stock exchange in future very soon. It basically institutionalizes zakat, if I'm not wrong, right? Yes. So it institutionalizes the charity money in Islamic finance. So, the challenges and lessons learned in this past year is that, first of all, of course, bottom-up change. When we work at bottom-up level, the change takes patience, a lot of patience and time. Mindset remains biggest barrier because the flow is towards, yet still towards consumerism at village level. Difficult to get support from universities and research institutes in new areas of research like these 8 domains, which is like economic design, social design. We are still in old paradigm. So it's very difficult to get research support from these universities. Systems thinking and integral approaches at government level, at institutional level, at think tank level still remains elusive. And we need to move at wartime speed and pace. That's also a biggest challenge here. At on one hand, bottom up change is slow, but on the other hand, we need to move at wartime pace and speed. And last is about messaging and strategizing and team and funding. But given these challenges, I would like to throw some light today that how we can co-create winning situation, how in our different capacities we can all contribute to this project. So at university level, we can contribute by contributing to research in these emerging areas or the domains. As tech experts, we can look at how we can empower villages and rural areas, how we can build holistic data dashboards for them. As village leaders, think tanks, policymakers, how we can think systematically and integrally. As city dwellers, we can introspect on our lifestyle and how we can cut down consumption because our each action counts. As high net worth individuals, how we can donate our money to social stock exchange so that projects like this can find funding. As business professionals, how we can reorient our business models. As students, we can volunteer in some of these projects. And as strategists, we can think of all the acupuncture points and people we can leverage on to do this. With that, I would like to conclude that climate change is a complex problem. It needs integral solutions. We are already in the era of global boiling. We need planned and managed rest from non-essential economic activity. We need urgent compilation of a One Earth balance sheet for global consensus. We need new knowledge infrastructure for the world. We need to liberate the mindset of the masses. We need a multidimensional development model at village level, and we need to move at wartime pace and speed. And most important is that we need to be ourselves the ripples of the change that we want to see in the world, and not just become the change, but also drum roll about it, because only when we tell others the change that we have become, they become influence and become the change themselves. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Sneha. Essentially, what you were saying is the old model, which was top down, is about an elite controlling the masses. And you've heard this phrase in Malaysia, B40, B40, what it means, the bottom 40. The bottom 40 is now become so angry. The middle class is angry because the top, not just 10%, the 1% control 80% of the wealth and the resources. So, how do we now empower, the bottom part to uplift themselves and transform the planet, not from exploitation, but regeneration is really the key issue. It's not about linear, it's about circular, right? So I think that the shell that Sneha showed in the last slide is really what it's all about. It's about not just taking, but giving. It's all circular, right? And that life is a cycle.